everybody, how's it doing? How's it going? Welcome back to another fan reading of r/CREEPCAST. Today we'll be looking at a story called The Iron Road Terror. This is by a person named, what was it? Analog Junkie 98. I'm unsure if they've written anything else, written anything else, but I will leave a link in the description below so you can check them out. I will also leave two more links in the description below. Teardolin, the guy that makes the music that I use in the intro and outro, and the Discord I have linked to, just the Discord. Man, I can't freaking talk today. Anyway, the Discord there, it's just me and a couple other writers. We just discuss stories, talk about, just whatever. You can share your stories that you've written, like a pre-story. What is it called again? I don't freaking know. I can't function. Oh my gosh, it's actually irritating. But yeah, whatever. Join the Discord if you want to. It's a bunch of fun there. We just, share stories. I'm repeating myself. Anyway, let's get into the Iron Road Terror.
Somewhere in Utah territory, 1868. Oh man, I know we literally just started. But that reminds me of a really old Flash series that's still kind of going to this day. Y'all remember Madness Combat? That took me back for a minute, somewhere in Nevada. Whew! Alright, let's get back to the story. The Utah Territory stretched vast and untamed, a country of red rock and dust, and jagged buttes that rose like broken teeth against the burning sky. In the mornings, the light came hard and golden, scorching the mesas, and night in the desert turned cold and sharp as iron. Sagebrush and brittle grass clung to the soil in patches, stubborn survivors in a land that gave nothing for free. It was a place that tested anyone who crossed it. Wagons splintered on hidden rocks, oxen collapsed from thirst, and men sometimes followed not long after. Heat stroke, starvation, sudden storms, flash floods, rattlesnakes coiled in the shade, all of it conspired to break the will of the traveler. Those who lived here knew better than most. The sun was a master of patience, and it swallowed the careless whole. And yet, for all its treachery, it was a land of majesty. The silence was deep, almost holy, broken only by the cry of a hawk wheeling above. The canyons sang when the wind cut through them. The horizons stretched endless, promising both danger and freedom in equal measure. But even the wilderness was changing. Deep in its heart, where no cattle trailer or stagecoach dared to go, a scatter of white canvas tents dotted the landscape like pale blisters. They gathered along a raw black line carved across the earth, the wound of progress. This was the line of Union Pacific stretching its way westward. Inside the tent slept the men tasked with the greatest work of their lives, laying iron across the spine of the continent. They were rough men, Irish, Chinese, freedmen, wanderers, driven by hunger, debt, or sheer stubborn pride. The campfires marked the slow, relentless march of industry through the last wilderness. The transcontinental railroad was more than rails and timber. It was a promise. It would bind the Atlantic Pacific, It would bind the Atlantic to the Pacific, link the teeming cities of the east with the gold and ports of the west. Goods, mail, and men would travel in days. What once took months by a wagon or ship. It meant unity after war, both after ruin, and a leash on a frontier long thought ungovernable. Every mile driven forward tightened the leash. Every spike hammered rang with the death knell of the old Wild West. The camp slept uneasily beneath a bruised sky. Dawn was little more than a pale smudge along the far horizon. The stars still stubbornly clinged overhead, the moon hanging thin and sharp. A soft breeze cut across the rows of canvas, tugging at guy ropes and making lanterns sway where they dangled from lines strung between rough-hewn posts. The tent shivered faintly with every gust, their fabric rippling in rhythm with the deep, guttural snores inside. Alright, sorry, I had to clear my throat. The fire pits had burned low through the night, their last embers glowing faintly orange beneath the ash. Smoke drifted up in lazy threads, carrying with it the scent of scorched coffee and pork fat left from the men's supper. At the center of camp, larger than the rest, sat the foreman's tent. Inside, Tobias Boone slept stretched across his cot, his face drawn hard even in rest, Once a decorated general in the Union Army, Boone had worn command like a second skin. But since the war's end, he had been a man adrift. The offer to lead this section of the Pacific had come at the right time. His old discipline, his iron steadiness, his sharp decision-making, all of it had made him the natural choice. If there was a man who could wrangle a camp of roughnecks, keep them driving rail through hell itself, it was Tobias Boone. But Boone was not the one the story would follow. No. The true witness slept at the foot of his cot, sprawled across the dirt floor with her legs sprayed, her chest rising and falling in quick, even breaths. Every so often a soft yip or throaty growl slipped from her jaws as she dreamed. Hairs darting across the sage, of birds taking wings just out of reach. Her nub of a tail thumped against the earth. The switching rhythm of some imagined chase. This was Spur. 7 years old, hide toughened by sun and dust, her coat still carried the vibrant red of her breed. A patch of white around her muzzle betrayed the years creeping up on her, but her eyes still burned sharp. Her spirit still quick, her ears, folded down since birth in a soft defect flicked at every sound around the camp. Canvas flaps stirring, the shuffle of restless boot, the whistle of the breeze as it cut between the tents. She heard it all. Spur stirred, rising slowly into stiff legs. She stretched long, forepaws planted forward as her back arched, then released a long, sighing yawn that showed her teeth with a shake of her coat. Dust puffed around her in dim half-light. Is this story based on the perspective of a rabbit, I'm guessing? That's alright, that's unique. Spur padded across the tent, claws clicking faintly against the wood planks beneath the cot. She rose on her hind legs, forepaws planted on the side of the bed. Her nose twitched as she studied Boone, chest rising and falling in the slow rhythm of deep sleep. She stared at him with patient expectancy, her ears tilting forward, tail nub quivering. A soft whimper slipped from her throat. She sniffed at his arm, then leaned up and dragged her tongue across his cheek. Ugh. Wet and instant, Boone only grunted, rolling his head to the side as he snored returned, stubborn and heavy. Spur blinked once, and made her choice. With a firm nudge, she drove her head into his ribs. Boone lurched upright, his eyes wide, his hand darting for the revolver on the crate by his cot, stopping when he found only Spur staring back at him. His gaze was blank, unbothered, as if to say, "You're late." The old soldier huffed, rubbing his face with a calloused hand. A yawn split his jaw, but a smirk tugged at his mouth all the same. "All right, girl, you win. Morning to you." He reached down and patted her head, fingers working gently between her ears. "Never mind, it's not a rabbit. Why did I think rabbit? It's a dog." Besides the cot sat a little ball, bound in leather and scuffed with years of play. Boone picked it up, holding it up to the dim light. Spur's ears pricked instantly, her whole body sharpening to a point. Her eyes went wide, tail stump wagging with violent impatience. Boone chuckled low in his throat, lifting his arm and feinting a throw. Spur flinched forward, muscles coiled, eyes locked to the ball's imagined path. When no ball came, she snapped her gaze back to Boone, betrayed. Then Boone gave a real toss. The ball sailed out through the tent's open flap, and Spur shot after it like an arrow loosed from a bow. We all do that with our dogs, go for a fake throw just to screw with them. With a grunt, Boone swung his legs off the cot and pulled himself upright. Joints popping as he stood, staggered to the corner of the tent where an iron contraption stood. A tall pipe rigged through the canvas, rope and lever hanging down. Wrapping his hand around the cord, he gave a firm yank. Outside, Spur had already pounced on the ball, shaking it violently between her teeth as though killing a rabbit. I swear I did not read forward on this. But her ears twitched at once, head snapping back toward the tent. A sharp blast of a whistle cut across camp, slicing the quiet morning in two. All around the tents came alive with groans and curses as the men stirred, dragging themselves into another long day. The noise of the camp swelled with each passing minute. The canvas flaps slapped open, boots scrapped across dirt, and voices rose in chorus of yawns, curses, and banter. Men called to one another as they stretched and stumbled. Some already shouldering tools, others dragging themselves awake with all the speed of molasses. At the mouth of the Boone's tent, Spur lay gnawing happily at her ball, her jaws working it over until it glistened with slobber. She only looked up when Boone stepped out. A uniform coat buttoned, boots laced, his hat shadowing the tired lines of his face. Spur's eyes followed him, head tilted, ball still wedged in between her teeth. Boone let out a low chuckle and shook his head. "You ready for breakfast?" He asked softly, voice rough with sleep. Clapped his hands together once. "Come on, girl." The ball dropped to the dirt with a wet plop as Spur scrambled to her feet, ears perked, tail nub wagging furiously. She bounded after him, leaving the toy forgotten behind her. Two of them moved forward to the camp's heart, where a wide canvas-roofed mess tent stood pitched. Smoke drifted from cook fires behind it, the air thick with the mingled scents of salt pork, beans, scorched coffee, and dried biscuit. Already a line of workers had formed, men shuffling forward with tin plates in hand as they received their morning portions. Boone fell in with the rest. Spur pressed close to his leg. A few of the men spotted her and bent down. Rough hands scratched behind her ear or patting her broad back as she passed. Spur leaned into the attention, tail beneath, beating in short, frantic thumps, her mouth opening in panting grin as she loosed a few happy grumbling sounds deep in her chest. "Morning, Spur," one of the Irish. Hold on. "Good morning, Spur," one of the Irishmen said, flicking a crumb of biscuit down to her. She snatched up, licking the dirt from the muzzle with no shame. By the time Boone reached the front, his tin plate was slapped full with standard fare: beans thick with pork fat, a strip of salt bacon, a square of cornbread hard enough to outlast a storm, and a tin cup of black coffee that smelled like burnt tar. Spur's eyes, however, weren't on the plate, and lifted higher as a head appeared above the counter, peering down at her. It belonged to a dark-skinned woman, her hair pulled back and threaded with gray, spectacles perched low on her nose. She looked to be somewhere in her 60s, her hands worn and strong from decades of work. A slow smile spread across her face when she spotted the healer waiting below. "Well, now," she said warmly, voice rasped with age, "if it is the little bear coming to stuff herself up." Spur's ears folded, her rump plopping to the ground as her tail stump wiggled with delight. She panted happily, tongue lolling, gazing up with wide, expectant eyes. To some in the camp she was Spur, to others simply Little Bear. Folded ears gave her a round, ears that were cub-like in appearance, a thick-set frame adding to the impression, and while she was gentle enough with the men, they knew she could turn fierce if pressed, a bear in spirit as much as in shape. The woman bent down and slipped a small sack across the counter toward Boone. "Scratched up some things special for you," she said with a wink. Boone accepted it with a nod, his mouth quickly quirking faintly. "Much obliged." He balanced his plate in one hand, the sack in the other, and began to turn away when her voice called him back. "Tobias," she leaned in a little, her expression tight behind the spectacles. "We're running a touch low on meat for this evening. Salt pork won't stretch far with all these mouths." Boone paused, then gave a thoughtful grunt. "I'll send Isaiah out later. He and Spur will scare up something out by the canyon." He tipped his hat, the matter settled in his tone. She nodded, though the worry lingered on her face as she turned back to the next man in line. Boone and Spur found themselves a patch of dirt near the fire pit, where the smoke curled low and lazily. Boone crouched down, setting a small sack in front of Spur. Her ears pricked instantly, tail stumps twitching with violent impatience. Raised a finger. "Wait." Spur froze in place, haunches pressed to the ground, but her eyes flicked rapidly between Boone and the sack, her tongue running along her lips as she whimpered softly. Slowly, Boone loosened the knot and peeled back the cloth. Inside lay the treasures she had put aside: strips of burnt bacon, a handful of dried blueberries, and a few chunks of raw potato. Hardly a feast for a man, but for Spur it might as well have been in heaven. "I am sorry if you can hear the dogs in the background. I can't control that. It's really annoying. My neighbors don't discipline them at all." Okay, where was I? Okay. "Wait," Boone repeated, voice firm but calm, as he set the sack open in front of her. Only then did he lower himself, settling his plate across his knees. He spooned up a mouthful of beans, softened them with cornbread. When he was ready, he finally muttered, "Aye." Spur launched forward, muzzle bearing into the sack. She crunched bacon with loud satisfaction, blueberries staining her teeth, potato chunks snapped down between eager jaws. Boone chuckled under his breath, shaking his head at her complete lack of grace. "You're a damn sight happier with your breakfast than I am with me." "You're a damn sight happier with your breakfast than I am with mine," he said, jabbing a fork into his beans as she devoured hers with reckless joy. For a moment the two of them ate together, side by side in the growing light of dawn. I cannot read with these dogs barking. Oh my gosh, it's like throwing me off constantly. Alright. Alright, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop the recording real quick. Okay, I think the dog stopped barking. For a moment, the two of them ate together, side by side in the growing light of dawn, the camp around them alive with voices and clatter. As Boone and Spur ate, the morning crowd at the cook tents thinned. First the foreman left, plates scraped clean, then the crews drifted off into twos and threes, the laughter and curses trailing behind. Soon the benches were empty, save for a few stragglers choking down cold beans. Boone wiped his hands on his trouser legs, set aside his plate, and stood. Spur licked the last grease from her muzzle and trotted after him without hesitation. Crossed out of the camp and onto the line. The great black scar that ran across the red earth, the iron road, still young, not yet christened by the thunder of locomotives, stretched away until it vanished in the pale horizon. Here the earth thrummed with sound. Men moved in rhythm along the track, their shirts already dark with sweat. The heavy fall of hammers struck down iron spikes in unison. The clang ringing sharp against the canyon walls. Monkey wrenches groaned as rails were twisted into place. The snap of cutters shearing bolts cracked like musket fire. Altogether it was a strange sort of music, a melody made of iron and toil, of aching hands and steady arms. Between the strikes and groans, voices rose in song, shanties carried by a dozen throat rolled across the plains, songs of back-breaking work and endless days, songs to bind tired men together in a rhythm that matched the swing of their tools. Some sang loud, defiant against the labor, while others hummed low, the words lost but the cadence steady as the road itself. Boone walked solo along the rail, hands hooked in his belt, head tilting slightly as he whistled the tune under his breath. He knew the song. Every man did who'd spent months on the line. His whistle was low, steady, and it blended with the metallic chorus around him. Spur padded close to his side, her paws silent against the dirt, her head swayed gently as she walked, nose twitching, ears flicking at every noise beyond the clamor of the tools. Men kept their eyes on their work. Spur kept her ears on everything else. The shift of brush, the whisper of wind, the faintest ting of something sour on the air. She seemed like a shadow among them, watchful in ways no man could ever be. The early morning crept towards noon, the sun climbing higher and washing the camp in blinding light. What had been cool shadows now gave way to shimmer of heat across the rail line. To the sides and back stretched nothing but open desert, hard and pale under the sky. Ahead, the land rose and broke in hills and mountains, and tucked away between them lay a canyon oasis. On the right days, it tempted the men to work faster, sink camp in its shadows, drink from the cool water that bubbled up from the earth. But until Boone gave the word, no one went there. The only one who ever came and went freely was Spur, trotting at Boone's heels on nearly every hunting trip. Boone stopped mid-stride. Flipping open the silver lid of his pocket watch, he grunted, sound deep and short, then snapped his fingers at Spur. The dog's ears perked. "All right, girl," Boone muttered. "Let's find Isaiah." Together they walked through camp, past the clank of hammers and the groan of rails being set. Boone made way to the cluster of tents and crates where their equipment was kept, but Isaiah was nowhere to be found. He turned to a nearby worker. "You see him?" Boone asked. The man shrugged. Said he was looking for someone that wasn't on the line. He was slacking off somewhere. Boone sighed through his nose and crouched low, tapping his knee to draw Spur in. Her tail wagged as she padded closer. Scratched her head once, firm and quick. "Come on, girl," he said. "Find Isaiah." And like that, Spur was gone. She bolted between the tents, sniffing at the dirt and crates, circling until the right trail caught her nose. Then she shot forward, weaving through camp and out toward the open desert. Poles drummed a steady rhythm, ears bouncing as she ran. Hot earth rose up around her, and the air carried Isaiah's familiar scent, iron, sweat, and the faint leather of his boots. Trail pulled on her onward, toward the direction of the canyon. Spur's paws kicked up dust as she charged through the hot stretch of sand and brush. Her tongue lolled out, ears flopping as her nose stayed low to the earth. Every so often she'd stop to test the air, turning her head this way and that before bounding on again. The desert was alive with scents, sage and greasewood, the faint tang of iron from the rail, the sweat of men, but beneath all that Spur caught the one she was after, Up ahead, a tall figure broke from the haze and shimmer of the rising heat. Broad-shouldered, standing easy despite the rifle on his back, Isaiah was already watching her approach. His thick beard pulled into a smile as Spur yipped and barked, skidding to a stop at his boots. "Well, now," he rumbled, bending at the knee and giving her a solid rub between the ears. "Boone finally get tired of you and sent you my way, eh?" Spur's tail wagged furiously, her body twisting with each swipe, but she barked once more, sharp, insistent, before spinning a little circle in the sand. Isaiah chuckled low in his chest. "I know that dance. Boone's looking for me, ain't he?" He straightened, tugging the canteen from his belt for a sip before tightening it back down. With a glance over the dry stretch behind him, he muttered, "I take it Boone's too busy to go on hunting run." Spur just stared up at him, tongue lolling, eyes bright and unblinking. Isaiah chuckled, straightening and slipping the rifle from his back into his hands. "Well, I guess we can kill two birds with one stone. I think one of our slacker nuts snuck off toward the canyon. We find him, we scare up some hares while we're at it. Sound good to you?" Spur barked once, sharp and eager, as if the matter were settled. "That's what I figured," Isaiah said, jerking his chin toward the horizon. Spur wasted no time. She bolted ahead, weaving through scrub and stone, poles kicking up little puffs of dust that glimmered in the sun. Isaiah followed in an easy lope, rifle balanced against her shoulder, his long shadow trailing behind. The canyon rose up to meet them, carved like a great scar on the earth. Its walls loomed high, jagged teeth of sandstone batting into the sky. Long shelves of overhanging rock cast dark, cool shadows that promised relief from the punishing heat above. The only way in was a single winding trail that sloped downward onto the gorge. Spur reached it first, paws skittering on the incline before slipping into a steady trot. Isaiah followed close behind, boots crunching on the grit as the desert sun gave way to the canyon shade. At the bottom of the trail, the world shifted. The sun's bite faded, replaced by a cool dampness that clung to Spur's fur. Patches of green broke through the canyon floor, ferns and grasses sprouting in little islands where shadows and soil had gathered. High above, the jagged stone still blazed with sunlight, but down here it was hushed and still, save for the roar of the distance. A river, hidden until now, bursting from the earth itself to snake along the canyon floor before vanishing back beneath the stone. Isaiah breathed deep, boots sinking into the softer ground. "All right, girl," he said, nodding ahead. "Go get him." Spur gave a quick wag of her tail and trotted off, ears pricking and nose twitching. The world was alive down here, rich with scents stacked on scents, each one its own story. Rabbit trails, bird droppings, damp stone, water, spray, dust. She sniffed greedily, snorting through the invisible layers, tail swishing as she padded farther away from Isaiah's view. Then it hit her, a sharp stink to wrinkle any human's face. Some animal had marked the ground here, rank and strong. Spur lowered her head to it, nostrils flaring, musk filling her chest with something rare and wonderful. To her, it was irresistible. She froze for a heartbeat, toppled sideways, rolling full into the spot. Paw kicked at the air, twisting and jerking as she ground her back into the scent. Tail thumping, soft happy grunts slipped out of her throat. It was pure bliss, a little secret delight. After a good roll, she scrambled upright, shook herself until dust and bits of green flew into her from her coat, gave a snort. Then her nose went back to work, pressing low to the ground as she nosed deeper into the canyon's patchwork of smells, eager for whatever lay ahead.
And that is the end of Iron Road Terror. That wasn't scary at all. I mean, I get where you're getting the Iron Road Terror from. It's just the hard working labor of building the railroad tracks, but there was nothing really scary about this story. Not that it's bad, it's a great description. I think he just wanted to, he or she, I don't know, the guy or girl. I'm getting too ahead of myself. I think they just wanted to write a story about a dog, and that's sweet. I really like the description, how, it felt relatable, because everyone plays with their dog. Everyone loves their dog. And I really like how he went into detail of, everyone just kind of paying attention to her, and kind of like the grueling task of these day-to-day workers that just work in the sun. But on that, it was a good story. I liked it. I did, but I just wished it was scary, But that's honestly all I have. So, like I said, all the links are in the description below. And thank you all for listening to the Iron Road Terror. And you all have a great day. Later.